The sea whispers in endless tones, a song older than the mountains and the skies above. Waves rise and fall, carrying secrets of forgotten journeys across the horizon of time. In the deep, where sunlight fades, mysteries stir like shadows woven into the fabric of water. There the ocean breathes, restless, untamed, yet full of life beyond human imagining. Every tide that kisses the shore carries the memory of gods who once walked among mortals. Among them stands Poseidon, keeper of the waves, master of storms, father of the deep. He is not only the roar of thunder or the fury of crashing seas, he is also the stillness after the storm, the calm surface where stars reflect in silence. To sailors, he is a guardian and a test, blessing or trial with every shifting wind. Legends say his trident can split the sea, raise new lands, or summon storms in a breath. But beyond power lies purpose, a reminder that the ocean is alive and sacred. Tonight, we follow the tides into his realm, where myth and truth merge in flowing waters. This is the story of Poseidon, the Stormshaper, eternal as the sea itself. The sea begins with a whisper, soft and endless, as if the world itself leans close to listen. It is not a silence, nor a roar, but a rhythm, older than time, flowing in every shifting tide. Close your eyes and hear it. The gentle pull of the current, the steady breath of the ocean. Every drop of salt water carries a memory, a secret older than the stars that watch from above. Long before maps, long before sails, the sea was the first path, wide and unbroken. Its waves carried drifting seeds, broken wood, and the dreams of creatures unseen. The sea is a storybook written not with ink, but with tides, winds, and endless motion. Legends say it is alive, thinking, breathing, shaping the earth as much as any god. When waves strike the cliffs, it is as if the ocean is speaking, reminding us of its strength. When the tide draws back, it whispers softly, promising it will return again, never ending. This is the whisper of the sea, the eternal voice that never sleeps, never falters. Ancient sailors listened with reverence, their hearts trembling between hope and fear. They believed every wave carried meaning, a message hidden in the rising foam. To them, the ocean was not just water, but a divine presence, alive with spirit. It offered both promise and peril, life and loss, but always demanded respect. On moonlit nights, the waters glittered like silver, stretching into forever. Fishermen cast their nets, whispering small prayers into the darkness. They knew the sea could fill their boats with gifts, or leave them with nothing but silence. The whisper of the sea was a guide, a reminder that humans walk only as guests on earth. Waves bend, but never break, carrying the patience of eternity in every motion. Children in coastal villages learned early to listen, to feel the rhythm of the tide. They watched the horizon and wondered what lived beyond the reach of their eyes. The sea told them stories in its shifting moods, stories of lands unseen and skies untraveled. Every sunrise painted gold upon the waters, every sunset a curtain drawn in mystery. And between day and night, the whisper continued, steady and endless. Poets compared it to a mother's song, soothing yet commanding, eternal yet fleeting. The sea holds both gentleness and power, and its whisper carries both in balance. Some say the whisper is the language of Poseidon, hidden within the waves, a message sent not in words, but in rhythm, in storm, in calm, in tide. To hear the ocean is to hear the god himself, speaking softly through the water's voice. The whisper becomes a song of warning when storms gather on the horizon. It rises in pitch, restless and fierce, urging mortals to seek shelter. Yet, when the storm passes, the whisper softens again, calm as a lullaby. This duality, the storm and the calm, is the truth of the sea. It cannot be tamed, it cannot be owned, it can only be honored. Generations of sailors learned to listen not with ears, but with hearts open to awe. They bowed to the sea as if bowing to a temple, for it was sacred beyond measure. The whisper of the sea connects the living to the divine, the mortal to the eternal. Every shell carried from the shore is a fragment of that voice, a memory in miniature. Hold one close, and you will hear it echo. The ocean's song, the god's whisper. It is not merely sound, but presence, a reminder that the sea is watching. The whisper shapes dreams, weaving visions of faraway shores and endless horizons. It invites mortals to journey outward, to seek, to wander, to discover. But always it reminds them to return with respect, for the sea belongs to no one. This is the beginning of Poseidon's realm, not with thunder, but with whisper. A quiet song that lingers at the edge of every tide, inviting us to listen. For in the whisper of the sea, the story of gods begins, eternal and unbroken. In the beginning, before temples and cities, the gods themselves were born from ancient chaos. From darkness and silence came light, sky, and earth, each shaping the fabric of the world. Among these divine children rose three brothers, each destined to rule a realm of power. Zeus took the sky, radiant with thunder, keeper of justice and king among gods. Hades claimed the underworld, silent and vast, where shadows linger and souls drift. Poseidon, mighty and unyielding, was given the sea, boundless and eternal. The ocean became his throne, his kingdom stretching farther than any mortal could dream. He carried not a crown of gold, but the shifting tide, ever changing, ever strong. The whispers of the deep sang his name, and the waves bent to his presence. From the moment he touched the water, the sea recognized its master, fierce yet protective. The storms became his voice, the tides his breath, the ocean his eternal companion. Unlike Zeus, who thundered from above, Poseidon's power came from beneath. The shifting currents, unseen but unstoppable, carried the weight of his will. Every river flowed to him. Every drop of rain found its way to his embrace. He was not born in stillness, but in movement, a god shaped by motion and rhythm. The sea became his heart, restless, vast, and infinite, mirroring his nature. Sailors would later call him Lord, but in truth, he was more than Lord. He was the sea itself, woven into its depths, impossible to separate. When he raised his trident, storms gathered like loyal soldiers awaiting command. But when he lowered it, silence fell and the ocean lay calm, still as glass. The birth of Poseidon was not marked by thunder or fire, but by water rising. It surged upward, wrapping him in waves, lifting him as their chosen ruler. Legends say even the first fish bowed, circling him in spirals of light and shadow. The dolphins leapt with joy, sensing a guardian who would watch their world. For Poseidon was not only strength, but also kinship, a bond with all sea life. Whales sang deeper, sharks swam closer, corals bloomed brighter beneath his gaze. The birth of a god is not like the birth of men. It is the birth of presence. From the first moment, Poseidon's spirit filled the oceans, stretching from shore to horizon. His trident was forged not of iron, but of divine essence, a symbol of balance. It was said each prong represented storm, calm, and tide, the three faces of the sea. Through him, the oceans became not just water, but a realm alive with sacred order. Mortals came to sense this when they gazed upon the horizon. They felt awe, wonder, and fear, for the ocean carried the god's spirit. The birth of Poseidon gave humanity a truth. The sea was no empty expanse. It was a kingdom vast and breathing, ruled by a power greater than themselves. Even the mountains trembled when his waves struck their roots with thunderous force. Earthquakes shook as if the land itself recognized the strength of the sea god. Poseidon's dominion was not limited to the water, but extended to the trembling earth. Every shift in stone, every crack in the ground, carried the echo of his trident. Thus, his birth was marked not only by water, but by movement across all realms. He was the balance between chaos and creation, between stillness and storm. To know Poseidon is to know the duality of life, gentle and fierce, giving and taking. His birth brought this truth into the world, written forever in the rhythm of the tides. And so the sea became sacred, not for its beauty alone, but for the god within. Poseidon's story begins not as a ruler distant from his realm. It begins as one with the sea itself, born of its breath, shaped by its depth. This birth was not an event, but an awakening, a merging of God and ocean. From that day forward, the sea was no longer just water. It was Poseidon. The trident of Poseidon is more than a weapon. It is the breath of the sea given form. Forged in the fire of creation, it was shaped by forces older than gods or men. Legends say the Cyclopes themselves crafted it, under the weight of divine command. 3 prongs of power, sharp and gleaming, bound together by the rhythm of eternity. Each prong carries a meaning: storm, calm, and tide, the eternal cycle of the sea. To hold it is to hold the balance of chaos and stillness in a single hand. When raised high, clouds gather, winds howl, and the ocean heaves in restless fury. When lowered, silence spreads, waves soften, and stars shimmer upon glassy waters. The trident is not destruction alone, it is choice, a tool of balance and renewal. Poseidon's bond with it is deeper than possession. It is union, like soul and breath. Through the trident, he listens to the heartbeat of the ocean and answers in kind. Every wave that rises, every tide that falls, flows through the veins of its power. It is not metal, not stone, but essence, alive with the spirit of the deep. Sailors feared its sight, for it meant the sea itself was awake and watching. Yet many prayed for it too, hoping Poseidon would touch the waters with mercy. The trident is symbol, reminder, and warning, all carried in one shining shape. Mortals carved it on ships, on coins, on walls, believing it brought safety and favor. It became a sign of protection, a mark that the sea had been honored. But to misuse it in thought or deed was to invite wrath, for balance must be kept. The trident could break mountains, but it could also guide a single lost boat to shore. It could summon earthquakes, yet also stir springs of water from dry and barren land. This dual power was its truth: creation and upheaval, storm and serenity together. Poseidon wielded it with mastery, never separate from his own spirit. When he touched it to the sea, dolphins leapt, waves curled, and horizons stirred. When he pressed it to the earth, the ground shook, as if recognizing his voice. It was not an instrument of war alone, but of shaping, weaving the world with water. The trident is called by poets the staff of eternity, a bridge between gods and mortals. Its image glimmers in stories told by fireside, echoing across generations of dreamers. Some say even the stars above bow when its prongs are lifted to the heavens. Others whisper that its glow can light the ocean floor, guiding creatures of the deep. To mortals, the trident is mystery, a promise of power beyond reach. To Poseidon, it is life itself, the embodiment of his domain and his duty. Without it, the sea would still move, but not with the same divine harmony. The trident carries his will outward, shaping waves, guiding tides, calming storms. It is the voice of Poseidon made visible, a spark of divinity for all to see. Its presence humbles mortals, for they know they are small before its strength. Yet it also comforts them, for within its power lies the calm after chaos. The trident reminds all who see it that the sea is never only one thing. It is fury and peace, destruction and blessing, chaos and harmony. In Poseidon's hands, the trident becomes a promise. The ocean will always endure. No storm lasts forever. No calm holds without end. The cycle continues. The three prongs shine as eternal truth, uniting the sea's many faces. Even now, when the waves crash, when the wind rises, it is said the trident moves. Invisible perhaps, but felt, guiding the rhythm of the waters. The trident is more than symbol, more than power, more than fear. It is Poseidon's heart, extended into the world, shaping fate with every tide. Through it, mortals glimpse the vastness of divinity, endless and untamed. Through it, the ocean sings its eternal song, whispering the name of its god. This is the trident of Poseidon, the power, the balance, the voice of the sea. The trident of Poseidon is more than a weapon. It is the breath of the sea given form. Forged in the fire of creation, it was shaped by forces older than gods or men. Legends say the Cyclopes themselves crafted it, under the weight of divine command. Three prongs of power, sharp and gleaming, bound together by the rhythm of eternity. Each prong carries a meaning: storm, calm, and tide, the eternal cycle of the sea. To hold it is to hold the balance of chaos and stillness in a single hand. When raised high, clouds gather, winds howl, and the ocean heaves in restless fury. When lowered, silence spreads, waves soften, and stars shimmer upon glassy waters. The trident is not destruction alone, it is choice, a tool of balance and renewal. Poseidon's bond with it is deeper than possession. It is union, like soul and breath. Through the trident, he listens to the heartbeat of the ocean and answers in kind. Every wave that rises, every tide that falls, flows through the veins of its power. It is not metal, not stone, but essence, alive with the spirit of the deep. Sailors feared its sight, for it meant the sea itself was awake and watching. Yet many prayed for it too, hoping Poseidon would touch the waters with mercy. The trident is symbol, reminder, and warning, all carried in one shining shape. Mortals carved it on ships, on coins, on walls, believing it brought safety and favor. It became a sign of protection, a mark that the sea had been honored. But to misuse it in thought or deed was to invite wrath, for balance must be kept. The trident could break mountains, but it could also guide a single lost boat to shore. It could summon earthquakes, yet also stir springs of water from dry and barren land. This dual power was its truth: creation and upheaval, storm and serenity together. Poseidon wielded it with mastery, never separate from his own spirit. When he touched it to the sea, dolphins leapt, waves curled, and horizons stirred. When he pressed it to the earth, the ground shook as if recognizing his voice. It was not an instrument of war alone, but of shaping, weaving the world with water. The trident is called by poets the staff of eternity, a bridge between gods and mortals. Its image glimmers in stories told by fireside, echoing across generations of dreamers. Some say even the stars above bow when its prongs are lifted to the heavens. Others whisper that its glow can light the ocean floor, guiding creatures of the deep. To mortals, the trident is mystery, a promise of power beyond reach. To Poseidon, it is life itself, the embodiment of his domain and his duty. Without it, the sea would still move, but not with the same divine harmony. The trident carries his will outward, shaping waves, guiding tides, calming storms. It is the voice of Poseidon made visible, a spark of divinity for all to see. Its presence humbles mortals, for they know they are small before its strength. Yet it also comforts them, for within its power lies the calm after chaos. The trident reminds all who see it that the sea is never only one thing. It is fury and peace, destruction and blessing, chaos and harmony. In Poseidon's hands, the trident becomes a promise. The ocean will always endure. No storm lasts forever. No calm holds without end. The cycle continues. The three prongs shine as eternal truth, uniting the sea's many faces. Even now, when the waves crash, when the wind rises, it is said the trident moves. Invisible perhaps, but felt, guiding the rhythm of the waters. The trident is more than symbol, more than power, more than fear. It is Poseidon's heart. It extended into the world, shaping fate with every tide. Through it, mortals glimpse the vastness of divinity, endless and untamed. Through it, the ocean sings its eternal song, whispering the name of its god. This is the trident of Poseidon, the power, the balance, the voice of the sea. The roar of the tempest begins not with thunder, but with a whisper that grows wild and restless. Winds stir like unseen spirits, brushing across the waves, turning ripples into swells of power. Dark clouds gather on the horizon, folding over themselves like curtains drawn by unseen hands. The sea shifts its voice, no longer calm, no longer gentle, but urgent and alive with force. This is the language of storms, the sound of Poseidon breathing through the world of water. Sailors once said the god's mood could be felt in the air before the first drop of rain. A hush would fall, the gulls would vanish, and silence would stretch too long to ignore. Then, without warning, the stillness would break, and the tempest would rise in sudden fury. Waves leapt higher, crashing with voices that echoed like drums against the earth. The storm was never only destruction, it was teaching, reminding mortals of their place. No king, no city, no warrior could match the raw truth of the sea's unchained power. The tempest was Poseidon's sermon. His lesson carried on lightning and roaring winds. It was not anger alone, but balance. For storms cleanse as much as they overwhelm. Rains fell heavy, washing away dust, reviving rivers, feeding the roots of earth. Lightning split the sky, fire in the heavens dancing above the restless sea. The storm became a theater of nature, vast, unrelenting, and alive with Poseidon's will. Sailors clung to masts, praying, whispering his name into the furious night. They begged not for calm alone, but for guidance through the wild trial of the waves. For to survive a storm was to emerge wiser, humbled, and deeply aware of the sea's might. The roar of the tempest carried both dread and awe, a paradox that lived in mortal hearts. Children would later sit by firesides and listen to tales of great storms survived. They would hear of ships tossed like leaves, of horizons swallowed by the endless gray. But always, behind the fear, was reverence, for storms were sacred signs of the god's hand. The tempest is the sea alive, rising, breathing, proving its endless strength. It is the reminder that water, though gentle in streams and lakes, can shape worlds. Mountains erode, cliffs crumble, and lands reshape beneath a hammer of storm. In this roar, Poseidon's voice is clearest, speaking to mortals in unignorable tones. The storm says, "You are small, yet you are seen. Fragile, yet chosen to endure." It says, "Respect the ocean, honor its depth, or be swept into its eternal embrace." And when the storm has passed, silence feels holy, as though the world has exhaled. Stars pierce the clearing sky, reflected in waves that now move in softened rhythm. The roar becomes memory, the lesson etched deep in the minds of those who endured it. For storms are not endless. They come, they teach, they leave, and they return again. This cycle is eternal, woven into the fabric of the sea, never ceasing, never failing. To stand within a tempest is to stand at the edge of creation itself. The world seems to break apart, yet it is also remade with every crashing wave. Sailors knew this truth, and so they did not curse the storm, but bowed to it in fear. They gave offerings, coins cast into the sea, wine poured into the waters. They prayed not to end the storm, but to find safe passage through its heart. For the tempest was not punishment, but test, a trial by which the sea judged men. Those who endured carried stories back to shore, voices trembling with awe. They spoke of thunder like the laughter of gods, of winds that howled like living beasts. Yet in their words was no hatred, only reverence for the power they had faced. The roar of the tempest is Poseidon's reminder that nothing is permanent but change. The sea rises, the sea falls, and in between lies the fragile journey of mortals. To listen to a storm is to listen to the god himself, wild, unyielding, eternal. And though the tempest roars fierce, it carries not only fear, but a strange, deep beauty. For within its chaos lies the heartbeat of the ocean, alive with Poseidon's eternal will. The sea has always been a mirror, reflecting not just the sky above, but the hearts of those who look upon it. To the fishermen, it is both friend and foe, feeding their families, yet testing their courage each dawn. They rise before light, casting nets into waters that hold both bounty and uncertainty. Every catch is a gift, every empty net a lesson, and every wave a reminder of Poseidon's presence. The ocean does not belong to men. Men belong to its rhythm, its rules, its timeless breath. For farmers, the sea is a giver too, sending clouds that turn into rain for their fields. Without the sea's endless cycle, rivers would dry, soil would harden, and hunger would grow. Thus, even those who never touched the shore owed their harvest to the ocean's hand. Merchants felt its blessing in the wind that carried ships across trade routes of the ancient world. Goods moved with the tide. Spices, silks, and stories, all exchanged beneath Poseidon's unseen gaze. But for each gift, there was cost, for storms and shipwrecks shadowed every journey. Yet mortals still returned, drawn by need and trust in the sea's unpredictable mercy. The sea's gifts were more than material. It gave meaning to myth, faith, and imagination. Every village by the coast built shrines, laying offerings to honor the god of waves. Small temples rose, humble yet sincere, filled with prayers whispered against the roar of surf. Sailors tied ribbons to masts, tokens of gratitude for safe voyages across restless seas. Fishermen poured the first drops of wine into the surf, asking favor for the day's labor. Mothers taught children to bow before the ocean, to treat it not as enemy, but elder. These acts were not fear alone, but recognition of the sea's sacred place in life. Poseidon's gifts were woven into daily living, as vital as air, as enduring as stone. And so his image grew vast, not only as stormbringer, but as guardian of life's flow. The sea fed them, clothed them, carried them, and even held their dead in gentle silence. For many, burial at sea was no punishment, but a return, a homecoming to the god. The waves became cradle and grave, a circle complete under Poseidon's eternal watch. His trident, seen in carvings, symbolized not destruction, but the balance of sea's power. 3 prongs, 3 truths. creation, sustenance, and trial, the endless rhythm of the deep. To live by the sea was to live within these truths, never free, never forsaken. The gods' gifts were not gold or jewels, but survival, connection, and awe of nature itself. Children grew with stories of dolphins guiding ships, signs of Poseidon's kindness. They heard of springs bursting from rock where his trident struck in compassion. Legends spread of islands rising from waves, lands gifted to mortals as blessings. Each tale was a reminder. The sea was alive, and its god listened, watched, and cared. Mortals learned gratitude even in hardship, for each dawn meant another chance, another voyage, another harvest, another lesson from the sea's endless voice. The ocean's generosity was not constant, but it was always present, waiting to be honored. For every storm endured, there was calm, and for every loss, renewal flowed again. Thus the people did not see Poseidon as cruel, but as just, ruler of a living realm. He was not apart from them, but within their days, their labors, their very breath. To honor the sea was to honor life, to see beauty and danger woven as one. For no gift is true without its shadow, no blessing whole without its weight. And so the sea remained not only vast water, but the divine presence of Poseidon. His gifts were daily, subtle, unending, like tides that rise and fall without end. To live with the sea was to live with the god, a truth mortals carried in their hearts. The heart of the sea is deep, darker than night, older than memory, and filled with countless mysteries. Below the waves, beyond the reach of light, lies a world untouched by mortal eyes. Coral kingdoms rise like forests of stone, alive with color, though no sun warms them. Creatures strange and wondrous drift in silence, their forms shaped by time and tide. Here Poseidon's presence is not thunder, but calm, steady as the pulse of the ocean. Legends tell that he walks these depths, his trident casting light across endless darkness. Where he steps, currents stir, carrying whispers of life through caverns and trenches. The deep is not barren. It is a cradle, a place where beginnings are written in silence. Fishes glitter like scattered stars, moving in schools that shimmer as living constellations. Great whales sing low hymns, their voices echoing through the liquid vastness of time. Their songs, it is said, are prayers to Poseidon, carried through miles of open water. Every sound here is sacred, every motion a verse in the sea's unending hymn. Mortals feared the deep, for it was unknown, and in its shadows lived endless imagination. Yet to Poseidon, the abyss was not frightening, but holy, a realm of eternal balance. Canyons carved by ages stretch deeper than mountains rise, secret pathways of the ocean. Within them, myths speak of palaces woven of coral, pearl, and shimmering shell. These were the homes of sea spirits, nymphs who served Poseidon with song and dance. They guarded springs and rivers, guided dolphins, and calmed the waters for worthy travelers. Each ripple in the deep held a purpose, every tide guided by unseen hands of divinity. Mortals told of encounters, moments when the sea revealed its hidden grace. A sailor lost at sea rescued by dolphins was said to be touched by Poseidon's mercy. A spring bursting from rock was seen as his blessing, born from the strike of his trident. In the deep, such miracles were not rare but constant, woven into the rhythm of life. To stand on shore was to see only surface. To dive within was to glimpse eternity. The abyss is where Poseidon's true kingdom lies, vast beyond mortal reckoning. No throne is needed, for the sea itself is his hall, endless and eternal. His crown is foam upon the waves, his robe the rolling tides that cloak the earth. His subjects are not bound by chains, but by harmony, each creature part of a greater whole. The deep is not chaos. It is order unseen, balance maintained beneath crashing storms. Mortals could not claim it, nor map it, for it shifted with Poseidon's will alone. What is hidden today may rise tomorrow, islands born from the deep in sudden wonder. Such gifts remind mortals that the ocean is alive, ever-changing, never conquered. And in its silence lies wisdom older than stars, patient as stone yet flowing as water. The deep teaches that strength is not only in fury, but also in stillness and endurance. A calm sea is not empty, it is powerful, waiting, carrying secrets of all that has been. Here, Poseidon's trident does not strike with rage, but glows with creation's spark. He shapes not only storms, but silence, the dual truth of his eternal domain. The abyss whispers to mortals, respect what you cannot see, honor what you cannot hold. For life itself rose from these depths, from waters older than mountains, older than fire. To understand the sea is to understand beginnings, endings, and the cycles between. The deep is Poseidon's heart, vast, quiet, eternal, beating in rhythm with the earth. And though mortals may fear it, they bow to it, knowing it holds the roots of life. For in the ocean's depths lies both mystery and memory, the divine presence of Poseidon. The sea has always been a place of journeys, carrying mortals farther than their eyes could see. Every voyage began with hope, sails filled with the promise of discovery and fortune. Ships carved across the water like fleeting shadows, fragile yet daring against the vast horizon. To mortals, the sea was both pathway and barrier, a challenge placed by Poseidon himself. Legends say he watched each vessel, weighing the courage of those who dared the deep. Sometimes he blessed their passage, guiding them with steady winds and calm waters. Other times he tested them, sending storms to measure their will and unity. A voyage was never only travel, it was trial, a sacred encounter with the god of seas. Fishermen spoke of dolphins swimming beside ships, signs of Poseidon's watchful eye. Merchants told of finding unexpected islands, gifts of fortune rising from the ocean floor. But sailors also whispered of ships that vanished, swallowed by sudden storms or hidden reefs. These tales were not curses alone, but warnings, reminders of the sea's living power. To sail was to gamble with fate, yet mortals returned again and again to the waves. For the sea was not only danger, but opportunity, opening paths to lands unknown. Ancient empires rose by its grace, their harbors filled with treasures, carried on restless tides. Without the sea, there would be no exchange of cultures, no meeting of distant worlds. Poseidon's domain was more than water. It was the thread weaving nations together. Each voyage written in salt and wind was part of a larger story, the story of mankind. Travelers prayed before departure, casting wine into the surf, asking for mercy and guidance. Families wept on the shore, their eyes chasing sails that vanished into the blue horizon. Every departure carried uncertainty, yet also faith in Poseidon's unseen hand. And when ships returned, their arrival was celebrated as proof of divine favor. Songs were sung of distant lands, stories of storms faced and marvels witnessed. Each tale strengthened belief that the sea was not empty, but alive with purpose. The voyage itself became a ritual, a dialogue between mortals and their sea god. For each mile crossed was not merely distance, but devotion, trust in the ocean's will. Poseidon, the Stormshaper, was not enemy but guide, demanding respect for safe passage. He was the silent captain, steering mortals through waters beyond their understanding. Even those who feared the sea could not deny its call, its lure of horizons unknown. Children grew dreaming of voyages, their hearts stirred by stories of brave sailors. The sea became a teacher of courage, patience, and reverence for forces beyond control. Mortals learned that no voyage was certain, yet every voyage was sacred. It was not destination alone, but the journey that held meaning, forged in wave and wind. The ocean was vast, yet each ship carried within it the strength of human spirit. And Poseidon, watching, honored that spirit, granting survival to those who showed respect. For arrogance led to ruin, but humility carried ships safely to their shores. The sea revealed itself only to those willing to listen, to bow, to honor its depth. And so, voyages became more than trade or conquest. They became acts of faith. Every oar stroke, every gust of wind, was part of a prayer answered by the sea. Each journey bound mortals closer to Poseidon, tying their lives to his eternal tides. The horizon remained endless, yet each crossing reminded them that they were never alone. For the sea carried not just ships, but souls, dreams, and stories into its embrace. And within that embrace lived Poseidon, keeper of journeys, guardian of every tide. Temples rose along the coasts, white stone gleaming where sea met land in sacred harmony. These sanctuaries stood as bridges, binding mortals and the mighty god of the sea. Priests lit fires beside crashing waves, their chants carried by the wind to Poseidon. Offerings were cast into the surf, wine, oil, and crafted statues carved with devotion. Fishermen brought their first catch, praying for more bountiful nets and safe return. Merchants gave coins, begging for calm waters to protect their journeys and treasures. Kings offered golden tridents, symbols of loyalty and acknowledgement of divine rule. Each offering was more than tribute. It was a promise of faith and gratitude. The temples themselves were marvels, columns rising like petrified waves, eternal in stone. Carvings showed dolphins, horses, and storms, all signs of Poseidon's living domain. Pilgrims traveled far to kneel, seeking blessings for voyages or forgiveness for arrogance. Every ritual held weight, for the sea god's favor meant survival and prosperity. At dawn, hymns echoed through marble halls, mingling with the sound of rolling surf. Priestesses scattered petals into the tide, symbols of beauty offered to the deep. Children learned prayers, their voices small yet sincere, planting seeds of lifelong devotion. Festivals lit entire coasts, with dances mimicking waves and songs praising the Stormshaper. Communities united in reverence, knowing the sea touched every life without exception. Poseidon was not distant. He was present in every tide that kissed their shores. Sailors swore they felt his gaze when departing, their hearts steadied by faith. Farmers even prayed for rain, believing his hand guided both storm and drought. Thus, worship was not confined to sailors, but spread to all who relied on water. Each temple became a lighthouse of hope, guiding mortals to humility and respect. Legends told of statues that wept salt tears, signs of Poseidon's living presence. Others claimed dolphins gathered near altars, listening to prayers carried by the waves. These wonders deepened faith, turning rituals into sacred encounters with the divine. Mortals learned that to give was to receive, a bond sealed through devotion. The ocean could not be owned, but it could be honored through reverent hearts. Poseidon's temples taught that power and mercy were tides that flowed together. Those who knelt in gratitude found themselves lifted by fortune and calm seas. Those who forgot respect found storms rising, not in anger, but in reminder. Every carved trident and poured libation was part of this eternal conversation. The temples were not only places of stone, but living voices of mortal faith. They echoed with centuries of prayers, layered like shells upon a vast shore. Even silence held meaning, as waves alone spoke between man and God. For worship was not only ritual, but recognition of something greater than oneself. The sea was eternal, and through these temples, mortals touched eternity. Pilgrims left with hearts lighter, believing they carried Poseidon's blessing within. Communities thrived because they remembered their place in the dance of sea and land. Poseidon's temples were more than sacred spaces. They were anchors of culture and hope. Here, faith was renewed like tides, flowing ceaselessly, never ending, always alive. The god was not distant but near, walking unseen among his faithful worshippers. Every prayer whispered to the surf was heard, and every offering found its way. Thus, the temples stood, timeless and unshaken, guardians of devotion to the sea. And within them lived the memory of every vow, every song, every sacred promise. Waves have long carried not only ships, but also the stories mortals whispered to the sea. Myths grew like foam upon the surf, shaping Poseidon into hero, guide, and storm. Every culture touched by the tide wove tales of the god who ruled the deep. In some he was fierce, shaking mountains and summoning storms with his trident. In others he was kind, gifting safe passage, rain, or springs to thirsty lands. Sailors spoke of him rising from the foam, crowned with kelp and riding dolphins. Children were told of his golden palace beneath the waves, lit by eternal light. There, mermaids and sea creatures sang songs no mortal ear could fully understand. Poets called him both destroyer and protector, a god whose moods mirrored the sea. Philosophers saw in him the essence of balance, chaos, and order entwined. Stories gave mortals a way to speak of what they could not control. They turned fear into reverence, uncertainty into tales passed from shore to shore. Each myth carried a lesson, wrapped in wonder, caution, and awe. One tale told of a sailor who mocked the sea and was humbled by storms. Another told of a city that honored Poseidon and prospered with full nets and rain. Legends explained earthquakes as the god's steps, reminders of his vast domain. Even inland villages told tales, for rivers and springs bore his touch too. Thus, Poseidon was never confined to coasts. His reach was felt far and wide. Travelers carried myths with them, like seashells holding the sound of waves. Wherever the stories spread, they bound mortals closer to the mystery of water. Bards sang by firelight, their voices rising like surf breaking against rocks. Children listened wide-eyed, dreaming of dolphins, storms, and hidden palaces of coral. Myths preserved more than belief. They preserved the human bond with the sea. For the sea was not empty, but alive, speaking through stories shared for generations. Each retelling kept Poseidon close, a presence woven into mortal memory. Even those who never saw the ocean felt awe through the stories they heard. In this way, Poseidon became timeless, his power renewed by mortal imagination. Stories were offerings no less sacred than wine poured into the waves. They honored him with words, with memory, with the echo of human wonder. The myths themselves became a tide, flowing endlessly from one age to another. They carried lessons across centuries, shaping cultures and guiding reverence. Myth turned fear into respect, respect into worship, worship into lasting tradition. The god of the sea lived in every verse, every song, every whispered prayer. And so the stories endured, like waves breaking ceaselessly upon eternal shores. Each tale a ripple, together forming an ocean of memory that never faded. Mortals may forget faces and names, but they remembered the power of Poseidon. His myths were not chains, but bridges, joining past, present, and future together. Through them, he was not only remembered, but eternally alive among mortals. The sea carried ships, but myths carried souls, weaving them into endless tide. And so the god remained, not only in waters, but in the very heart of story. The sea remains, eternal and vast, a mirror of the god who shaped its storms and calmed its tides. Poseidon's presence is felt not in statues alone, but in the rhythm of every rolling wave. Mortals still stand at the shore, watching horizons that seem endless, yet always inviting. They whisper prayers into the wind, trusting their words will find their way across the deep. For the god of the sea listens not with ears, but with the pulse of the ocean itself. Each tide is an answer, each wave a reminder that they are never beyond his gaze. Ships continue to rise and fall upon waters that hold both peril and promise. And though ages pass, the lessons remain, carried like shells in the pockets of time. Respect, humility, and faith are the oars that steer mortals through Poseidon's realm. Those who remember this truth find guidance even in storms that test their spirit. Those who forget are reminded swiftly, for the sea yields no arrogance, only honesty. The myths we tell are not just of the past. They are currents shaping the present. In each story of dolphins, storms, or hidden palaces, Poseidon still breathes life. Children listen as their elders speak of the god who commands waves with a glance. And in their eyes, wide with wonder, Poseidon's immortality is renewed again. For gods live not only in temples, but in the hearts of those who remember. The ocean's roar is his voice, the foam his laughter, the calm his silent grace. Each horizon crossed is a prayer answered, each safe return a blessing received. Mortals need not see him rise from the foam to know he walks among them. The sea itself is proof, alive, restless, and infinite, never still, never silent. And so Poseidon remains not as a distant figure, but as a companion to all who sail. He is the unseen hand that guides, the unseen depth that humbles and inspires. No age is too modern to escape his reach, no voyage too small to escape his eye. The waves that touched ancient oars now cradle steel ships, yet the god is the same. Time changes mortals, but Poseidon endures, timeless as the tides he commands. His storm is reminder, his calm is mercy, his presence is eternity itself. We are but travelers, passing shadows upon his infinite blue stage. Yet through him, our journeys find meaning, and our stories find their place in the tide. For every ending upon land is only a beginning upon the sea. And every beginning upon the sea is a dialogue with Poseidon, the Stormshaper. Thus the story does not close but flows, endless as the waters it describes. The sea will continue to speak, and mortals will continue to listen. Some will return with tales of marvel, others with silence filled by awe. But all will carry something of the god with them, whether in memory or spirit. Poseidon's gift is not merely survival, but connection, a bond unbroken across ages. We are joined to him by the water we drink, the storms we endure, the tides we praise. As long as waves touch the shore, his story remains, eternal and unshaken. And as long as mortals dream of horizons, Poseidon's voice will echo in their hearts. This is not farewell but continuation, the sea forever speaking in tides and song. And Poseidon, eternal, forever listening, forever shaping, forever near.